A bittersweet anniversary. Okinawa marks 50 years since the end of U.S. occupation, but it's overshadowed by renewed militarization. A new era in relations. Joe Biden says the future is Asia, ahead of his first visit as president to the region. It's a commitment being mirrored in Europe. Why the Indo-Pacific is at the top of French President Emmanuel Macron's agenda. And we take you to Germany, where hobby gardeners are getting their hands dirty. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. The first round of Taiwan's largest annual military games, the Han Kuang exercises, kicked off on Monday. The exercises were first conducted in 1984 and are designed to prepare the armed forces for an attack from China. This year's War Games will take place in 2 stages. The first lasts for 5 days. It involves many of Taiwan's highest-ranking military officials taking part in a tabletop simulation of a Chinese invasion. The second stage, scheduled for July, will feature live fire drills conducted around the country. Taiwan's military has said that it plans to incorporate lessons from the war in Ukraine into this year's exercises. It's been 50 years since the U.S. returned the island chain of Okinawa to Japan, but the anniversary on Sunday was tainted with bitterness. The region is still home to a heavy U.S. military presence, and as tensions rise with China, it is now seeing Japanese troops increasingly deployed there. Jaime Okan has the story.
This is Miyako Island, one of more than 150 islands in Japan's southwestern Okinawa prefecture. Closer to Taiwan and China than to Japan's mainland, it's known as one of the most beautiful places in Japan. But new neighbors are settling in, changing the landscape. What used to be a golf course is now a fully functional military base, equipped with anti-air missiles, radar systems, and hundreds of troops, all aimed at thwarting aggression from nearby China.
この1200キロに及ぶ南西諸島全域の各種事態へ迅速に対応する即応体制を向上するということが一つです。2つ目は先ほど申しました部隊の配備によって海上優勢そして航空優勢を確保して当初侵攻に対応する基盤を確保する。
The island, close to disputed territory, sits in the strategic Miyako Strait, an important waterway for China. It often serves as one of the primary passageways into the Pacific for the Chinese Navy. For many locals, wary of Chinese encroachment, the military presence is a welcome one.
今の国際情勢の中において、日本が国境離島であるこの先島、宮古島に、自衛隊配備するということはもうすごく妥当な決断だと思いますので、それによって宮古の安全が僕は保たれるというふうに思いますので、この防衛の切れ目のない防衛というか、しっかりとした国境離島を守るという考えに賛同するので、私は賛成しています。
After its defeat in World War II, Japan renounced any military capabilities and signed a security treaty with the United States, which still has tens of thousands of troops in the country. Across the waters from Miyako, Okinawa Island hosts the largest U.S. Air Force base in the Pacific, a contentious presence from the beginning. But with tensions high in the region over increased Chinese provocation, Japan has shifted its security strategy and bolstering its self-defense capabilities. Protesters against militarization are skeptical and fear the base could have an inverse effect on the island's safety.
こういう小さな島々ですので、基地ができることによってこれは守られるのではなくて、むしろ呼び寄せる、先ほども言いましたけども、攻撃の対象にターゲットになりますし、だから決してこれは平和につながるものではないと思います。
Keeping the peace now looks different for Miyako's 55,000 residents who have had to make room for the nation's armed forces, whether they like it or not. Now part of Japan's first line of defense against any possible Chinese aggression, People here hope that their new reality doesn't provoke a conflict in an area already marked with tension. As Nayetzo and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
The United States is hailing a new era in its partnership with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. That's following President Joe Biden's first U.S.-ASEAN summit. Biden will now make his first trip to Asia as president this week. He will visit Japan and South Korea. TaiwanPlus reporter In Kavat spoke with Charles Dunst, an associate with the Asia Group and an adjunct fellow with CSIS. She asked him what message the U.S. president is sending.
His willingness to host the ASEAN leaders is a real effort to signal to the region that the United States remains focused, remains committed, understands that China is the broader challenge here, that Asia is the future, will be the world's most economic center, and that the United States wants to remain focused on that. And presidential visit is important. I mean, of course, Vice President Harris has gone to Asia before in the last year and a half, as has Lord Austin, as has Tony Blinken. But presidential time is limited. Presidential time is valuable, in getting face-to-face time with Joe Biden in Asia or in Washington matters quite a lot, and I think that shouldn't be understated.
Does it signal perhaps how the US deems the threat from China? Is there a change to that? Is there an escalation?
I don't think there's necessarily an escalation. I think there may be fears among certain Asian powers or Asian governments. I mean, of course, as with Taiwan, that what happened in Ukraine could happen in the Indo-Pacific. And that's why you have Quad leaders explicitly saying in recent months that we will not stand for unilateral change to the status quo by force in the Indo-Pacific. I mean, Japan has said it's an existential threat if China takes action against Taiwan. Australia has said something somewhat similar. India's position's a little more unclear. But the broad point is that countries have said, we do not want what happened in Ukraine to happen in Asia, particularly regarding Taiwan. So the U.S. effort to basically say, we remain focused on Asia. We're not going anywhere. We're not retrenching. We're not going to kind of just let China dominate Asia is an important signal, of course.
And going back to ASEAN, how significant was the expanded maritime cooperation, the deployment of personnel for training and even assets to the region?
$60 million of new U.S. investment is meaningful. So is the presence of U.S. personnel and assets in the region. The readout from the summit suggests that the United States will deploy assets only to help meet partners' requests, meaning that countries that do not want to engage with the United States on maritime issues don't have to, which is important because, of course, if you're an ASEAN country that is leaning more towards China, you don't want to antagonize China by having U.S. military forces on your territory. Overall, though, I will say this expanded maritime cooperation is a positive step by the United States to help these particular countries with South China Sea disputes with China stand up to China and possibly improve their militaries moving forward. So a positive step, if only a small one for now.
U.S. officials say an 18-year-old behind a mass shooting in the U.S. state of New York did research on a neighborhood beforehand so he could kill as many black people as possible. 10 people were killed in the attack, including an 86-year-old woman. Ranho Kilpatrick reports.
Another community reels from a racially motivated shooting in the United States. A lone teenager armed with an assault rifle gunned down shoppers, supermarket staff and an armed security guard in Buffalo, New York, killing 10 in the year's deadliest mass shooting yet.
What started out as a beautiful day in the city of Buffalo has turned into a terrible day and one of tremendous heartbreak for every member of our community. We have suffered a mass shooting with multiple casualties and several people injured.
The 18-year-old killer traveled across New York State to this particular grocery store in a predominantly black neighborhood, allegedly publishing an anti-Semitic white supremacist manifesto online before making the hours-long drive. The suspect surrendered to police after his rampage, which authorities say will be investigated as a racist hate crime.
Within the next hour, this individual will be arraigned on a charge of murder in the first degree. I am not even going to mention his name right now, one, because the arraignment hasn't occurred, but more importantly, I don't want to give him any celebrityism at all right now.
The unfolding tragedy in Buffalo comes amid a spate of racially motivated violence in the United States. It's the deadliest mass shooting of 2022 so far, but just 19 weeks into the year, it is already the 198th to take place nationwide. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick, Piper Yu, and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
A gunman opened fire on a Taiwanese church congregation in Southern California on Sunday, killing one person and injuring 5 others, 4 of them critically. The victims were mostly of Taiwanese descent. The shooting happened at a Geneva Presbyterian church in Laguna Woods as members of the Irvine Taiwanese Presbyterian Church were holding a lunch banquet after their morning service. Churchgoers managed to overpower and disarm the suspect. They tied him up with an extension cord. Officials say the suspect is a man of Asian descent in his 60s. The motive for the attack remains unclear.
Obviously, motive is always the question, which determines the extent of involvement at the federal level, or whether federal or local prosecution is pursued. And at this time, we are working very hard to determine the motive.
French President Emmanuel Macron formally began his second term in office this weekend. The 44-year-old won victory in last month's presidential polls over far-right leader Marine Le Pen. He was sworn in as president on May 7th. He has promised tax cuts, welfare reform, and a new emphasis on the environment in his next 5-year term, but his first challenge will be to tackle France's cost of living crisis. Reporter Rick Glauert spoke to Pierre Goulange, head of the Political Affairs, Press and Communications section of the French office in Taipei, about what to expect from Macron's foreign policies. Rick began by asking him what the second term will mean for Europe.
So now France is actually the chair of the Council of the European Union, and we are going through a very important moment because of the war going on in Ukraine. So one of our priority, and this is I think something that our president has been doing during his first term, is to really strengthen the sovereignty of the EU. Just to give you a quick example, last week was Europe Day on May 9, and our president, for his first international trip after his inauguration, decided to go to Germany. I think that official trip was designed to mark the French-German friendship, but it was also very important to underline the issue as a sovereignty on the EU.
And what could we expect from Macron in the next few years in terms of his Indo-Pacific strategy?
The Indo-Pacific region is definitely a priority of France's foreign policy. France itself is a country of in the Indo-Pacific. We have 2 million French people living in the region. We have 93% of our economic exclusive zone and permanent troops stationed in the region. And also we are aware of the global challenges in the region. So France is definitely pushing for its strategy, but is promoting a stable multipolar order based on rules and fair, efficient multilateralism and free movement. So we can expect in the coming years to see the Indo-Pacific to be still at core of the French foreign policy. France also have been working hard to encourage the EU to adopt an ambitious Indo-Pacific strategy.
And what do you think Macron's win means for Taiwan?
I think the relations between France and Taiwan have been growing very positively for the last couple of years in all fields of our cooperation. Can be trade, business, culture, art, education, university, startups, innovations. There's plenty of opportunities. And I think that definitely in the coming years, there will be more engagement with Taiwan on these different issues. Right now, there's a lot of French people who are willing to come to Taiwan. They are only waiting for borders to open up again to be able to meet with their Taiwanese partners and to launch new projects, new partnerships, new cooperations.
Taiwan's largest opposition party, the Kuomintang or KMT, is set to nominate legislator Jiang Wan-an as its candidate for Taipei mayor in November's local elections. That's according to party sources. 43-year-old Jiang is currently isolating after contracting COVID. It's thought he will formally announce his candidacy at the next major party meeting later this month. Jiang is the great-grandson of Chiang Kai-shek, the former president of the Republic of China, who led the Chinese nationalist retreat to Taiwan at the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949. That legacy is a complicated one. Chiang Kai-shek and his son Jiang Jingguo ruled Taiwan as a one-party state, often brutally suppressing dissent. But they also oversaw rapid growth in both incomes and living standards. Taipei's mayoral election is viewed as a stepping stone to even higher office. Former Presidents Ma Ying-jeou and Chen both serve as mayor of Taipei before securing Taiwan's top job. Another Taiwanese table tennis player has won an international competition, this time at a World Table Tennis, or WTT, feeder Westchester tournament in New York on Sunday. Zhang Zhiyuan won the men's singles title. It was his first time in 6 years winning a singles title in an international tournament. He defeated 25-year-old Benedikt Duda of Germany 4-3 in this finals. The win was Zhang's second title at a WTT tournament in New York. He won the mixed doubles title with partner Chen on Saturday. The 41-year-old Zhang is known as the godfather of table tennis in Taiwan. He's one of the oldest international athletes representing the country and is credited with making a name for Taiwan in world table tennis tournaments. Taiwan's COVID wave has yet to recede. On Monday, the country saw nearly 62,000 new cases. The government has responded by approving a fourth COVID jab for senior citizens and other vulnerable people from Monday. Seniors aged 65 and up, immunocompromised adults, and residents of long-term care facilities can all get one as long as it's been at least 5 months since their last jab. Around 4 million people are eligible. Doctors say a fourth dose is important because immunity reduces over time. They expect a fourth shot will cut the number of people with serious symptoms or needing to stay in hospital. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has called in the military to stabilize medicine supplies as the country battles its first major COVID-19 outbreak. The state's official COVID death toll stood at 42 on Sunday, but state media says over 800,000 suspected cases have been reported. At an emergency Politburo meeting, Kim said medicine hasn't been getting to the people that need it fast enough. He ordered the Army's medical corps to immediately stabilize the supply of medicines in the capital, Pyongyang. Kim has called the outbreak the greatest turmoil in North Korea's more than 70-year history. The country's population of 26 million is believed to be largely unvaccinated. Shanghai is allowing some foreign businesses to resume operations as the city gradually eases strict lockdown measures. The move comes as new daily COVID-19 cases have dropped to the lowest level since the current outbreak began. Officials say Sunday that around 700 foreign enterprises in the city may now resume production or prepare to do so. They also said stores, malls, and markets will be allowed to reopen gradually. Shanghai's 25 million residents have been under lockdown since late March. Food prices are rising around the world, and many people are looking for alternate ways to get their hands on produce. And for some, that means going back to basics and growing their own. One company is trying to make it easier for amateur farmers. And as Eric Gao reports, business is booming.
More and more people in Germany are taking matters into their own hands and growing their own vegetables. With food prices rising around the world, hobby gardening has exploded in popularity. One company, Meine Ernte, which means My Harvest, is renting out land to the growing number of amateur farmers.
Aber wir merken in den letzten 2 Jahren, natürlich durch Corona und jetzt auch durch die Situation der Ukraine, ist die Nachfrage noch mal sehr deutlich gestiegen, weil die Menschen sehen, okay, Lebensmittel werden teurer, Lebensmittel werden knapper und ja, wenn man sich einen Garten mietet, hat man natürlich die Möglichkeit, sich ein Stück weit selbst zu versorgen.
Meine Ernte charges $250 per season to rent a plot. They'll also provide everything you need to grow crops.
Das heißt, Gartengeräte, die Bepflanzung ist komplett enthalten. Das heißt, ich kümmere mich selbst darum, ich jäte, ernte und kann auch nachpflanzen und nachsehen. Und einige Gärtner, die schreiben wirklich auf, was sie alles schon geerntet haben. Und wir hatten eine Familie, die hat 450 Kilo Gemüse aus ihrem Gemüsegarten ernten können und hat damit natürlich den Saisonbeitrag um ein deutliches übertroffen und hat viel mehr aus dem Garten rausgeholt, als sie dafür eigentlich bezahlt haben.
Some amateur gardeners enjoy the experience so much, they come back for another season. And they can get much more out of it than just vegetables.
Das lohnt sich langfristig schon. Ich mache das jetzt zum zweiten Mal, also letztes Jahr auch schon. Und letztes Jahr war es eher so, dass ich ein Corona-kompatibles Hobby gesucht habe und Gärtnern irgendwie ganz cool fand. Aber ich habe letztes Jahr schon meine Ernte ganz penibel abgewogen und dann mal mit den Biogemüsepreisen hochgerechnet. Und es lohnt sich finanziell definitiv. Das wäre aber für mich nie ein Grund. Mir hat es einfach Spaß gemacht mit dem Gärtnern. Ja.
These gardeners are proving that getting your hands dirty can be a good thing, especially when it's putting food on your plate. Damon Lin and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
Sanchong in northern Taiwan's new Taipei city was once famous for making ink, but now only one traditional ink maker remains in business. We meet a craftsman leaving his mark on Taiwan's cultural history.
台南就专门做毛笔了，你砚台就是彰化二水，你纸就是南投，墨就是在三重。这个很少人知道，说制墨的文化就在三重。因为大陆福建福州人来这边，他们就来三重这边生活，所以制墨就落地在三重。照你讲来，台湾应该是，若要台湾人就是台湾后边一个，做法就单单伊学到，所以就讲大家讲硕果仅存就是安尼。 我叫陈俊天，今年40岁，对阮爸做差不多28年了。但是认真学起来是前6年前啊，才全部学了，全部学了，是安尼。咱的墨你看外口买大陆墨都是学生墨嘛，伊烟无共，咱是用松树烧的树仔烟，也用化学烟，再来牛皮胶，牛的皮去提炼的胶质，像以后的胶质也当做胶囊，再来就是加冰片跟麝香，冰片就是咱你食什么龙角散、运功散、迄凉凉、迄中药，就是这三项来调配起来。最难学的就是里面那台机器人碾墨机那倒不对，迄台我学半年。碾墨机的作用第一就是安怎？你瞅咱蒸墨，蒸完之后也吸水嘛，变嫩。伊迄3个轮摩擦深了，你蒸发伊的水分，因为你墨碾出来你也收嫩，内只嘛袂烂净，收丁嘛袂烂净。所以变讲你爱家己去拿捏好。 它的柔软硬度，会使啊，咱这是会使摕出来烂，唔是讲安尼架架架就摕出来袂使。其实台机器的作用是伫遐。较早我听阮老爸讲啊，以前没有这台机器的时候，是像原住民你捣小米酒啊，讲安尼一直对，讲足忝。阮老爸讲我偌忝。因为你碾墨碾完之后，你感觉会使烂啊，咱就摕出来了，就是要烂的时阵，就是爱降。降的原理伫度，就是甲伊空气打掉。 让它的密度更密。无你降了无好的时候，你烂在阴干的过程，伊有空气时，伊会变会裂掉。你烂墨的时候手拢足酸啊，每一个环节拢爱出力安尼。所以变成说碾墨之后再来敲打，再来揉，再来入模，入模之后干了之后，再来就是洗墨。 墨爱洗，这表面上伊有灰尘，阴干的时候你嘛是有灰尘的，甲入的了，再来上漆，最后一步就是上漆安尼。所以当初我细汉的时阵是阮爸有请人，到后壁因为两岸三通的关系，才剩阮爸一个。本来是讲要收起来，因为阮爸是做学生墨，因为大陆廉价倾向的关系，阮爸唔知介意做这种厚的松烟墨。因为民国92年伊得新传奖的时候，我也知影伊就爆红。 爆红我等来那个斗3工啊！因为我咧做汽车零件，我是个斗3工，等来个斗用。整间墨啊，就只有模具是最有价值。阮爸爸伊是对伊这模很爱惜啦，定定妈讲你模有当时爱注意。因为有的是因师傅留落来啊，拢爱保存掉。因为阮咧模具拢一支尔，你墨做几百支嘛有，但是迄模就一支，迄支模若无紧就断了。 所以很有价值性。说一人来要买，嘛是话要买，我无可能来买一支尔卖互你，我就无啊，迄支就爱断啊。 对阮爸接手哦，我来讲真诶啊，咱年轻一定有想法啊，定要甲改变，无法度改变，改变袂。这物件我研究足久啊，要用头一步，还是讲要用较紧的，袂使就是袂使，就是爱照伊安尼传统的，一步都袂减去。我就捌试过啊，袂减就袂减，做出来就是无共。
Two pangolins from Taipei Zoo met the public for the first time at Prague Zoo on Sunday. Prague's mayor and Taiwan's representative in the Czech Republic attended a ribbon-cutting ceremony where the pangolins were unveiled. The zoo has organized activities to teach people about the endangered mammals, including an art workshop for kids and a demonstration on how their feed is prepared. The pangolins are on loan to the zoo for a breeding program. Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Finally, today we'll leave you with images of the moon rising over the ancient temple of Poseidon on the coast of Greece. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.